The new granite countertops gleamed under our recessed lighting as 40 guests mingled in our freshly renovated kitchen. 3 months of construction had transformed our dated ranch house into a modern showpiece. Though the dust had barely settled before my mother-in-law, Diana, insisted on throwing this housewarming party. Everyone gathered round. Diana called out, tapping her champagne glass with a perfectly manicured nail. "I want to make a toast to my wonderful son and daughter-in-law's beautiful new home." My husband, Chris, squeezed my hand as we stood by the new island. He didn't know what I'd discovered yesterday, didn't know about the certified letters stacked in my home office. "As you all can see," Diana continued, gesturing broadly at the open concept living space, "this renovation has turned their modest starter home into something truly spectacular." The kitchen alone. I felt the weight of the contractor's folder in my tote bag, hidden behind the couch. Every unpaid invoice, every urgent email, every legal threat, all carefully documented. And of course, Diana's voice rose dramatically. I couldn't be happier to give them this gift. $95,000 well spent on making their dreams come true. The guests murmured appreciatively, admiring the custom cabinets and waterfall quartz countertops. Chris's cousin, Emma, touched the high-end appliances reverently. "This is so generous of you, Aunt Diana." "Well, you know me," Diana preened. "Nothing but the best for my children." The contractor was quite expensive, but when you're creating dreams. "Which contractor?" I asked quietly, but clearly enough to carry across the room. Diana's smile flickered slightly. "What was that, dear?" "Which contractor?" I repeated, stepping away from Chris. Was it Martinez Construction, or Anderson Brothers, or maybe Capital Renovations? "Well, I had dealt with them through my personal assistant," Diana stammered. I reached for my tote bag. "That's interesting because I have all the contracts right here, and they're all in our names, Chris's and mine, not yours." The room grew quiet except for the soft jazz playing through our new sound system, another gift that was actually financed on our credit cards. "Karen, darling," Diana laughed nervously, "this isn't the time to discuss tedious paperwork." "Actually, it's exactly the time," I said, pulling out the folder. "Since you're taking credit for the renovation in front of all these witnesses." Chris stepped forward. "Karen, what's going on?" I handed him the first document, a notice of intent to file a lion from Martinez Construction for $42,000 in unpaid work. "Your mother didn't pay for anything. We've been getting collection notices for weeks." Diana's champagne glass trembled slightly. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake," I continued, laying out more papers on our gorgeous new island. "Anderson Brothers is owed $28,000 for electrical and plumbing. Capital Renovations is demanding $25,000 for the custom cabinetry. Total with interest and late fees, exactly $95,000. The guests shifted uncomfortably as Chris read through the notices, his face growing pale. "Mom, what did you do?" I meant to pay it," Diana protested. "The money is coming. I just needed to move some investments around." "What investments?" I asked. "The ones you claimed to make for our wedding? Or the trust fund you said you set up for our future children? Or maybe the business loan you promised Chris last year?" Years of Diana's financial fantasies were unraveling in our beautiful new kitchen that we couldn't afford. Every renovation decision had been influenced by her promises that turned out to be as hollow as the walls we'd torn down. "You told us to upgrade everything," Chris said, his voice shaking. "Said not to worry about the cost because you were handling it all." "And I will," Diana insisted. "As soon as my investments mature." I pulled out one final document, a notice of property seizure warning. "We have 30 days to pay or they'll put a lion on the house. All 3 contractors are filing claims." The elegant housewarming party had become a nightmare of exposed lies. Diana's carefully maintained image as the generous, wealthy mother was crumbling faster than the old plaster we'd removed. "I only wanted you to have nice things," Diana whispered. "To live the way you deserve." "On money that didn't exist?" I asked. "On promises you never intended to keep." The guests began to quietly gather their things, sensing that this celebration had turned into something else entirely. Emma stopped by the door, looking back at the luxury appliances with new understanding. "The renovation at my house. Mom said you were paying for that too, Aunt Diana." Diana's face went white. "Emma, darling, check your contracts. I advised. Check everything she's ever promised to pay for. The last guest slipped out quietly, leaving behind half-empty champagne glasses in an atmosphere thick with tension. Chris sat at our expensive new island, methodically going through every invoice, every threatening letter, every broken promise. The timing makes sense now, he said quietly. Every time we questioned a cost, every time we wanted to scale back, Mom would jump in with another guarantee. Get the marble, not the quartz. I mimicked Diana's enthusiastic tone. Of course I'm covering it. Don't you trust your own mother? Diana remained perched on one of our custom-made bar stools, her perfect posture at odds with her crumbling composure. I was trying to help you live beautifully by making us renovate beyond our means. I pulled out my laptop and opened our financial spreadsheets. We specifically budgeted for a $40,000 renovation. Basic updates, nothing fancy, but you kept pushing for more. The high-end appliances were your idea, Chris added, looking at his mother. The custom cabinetry, the imported tiles, the smart home system. Every time we said it was too expensive, you claimed you were handling it. Emma hadn't left yet. She stood by the door, furiously texting on her phone. Mom's calling everyone. Apparently, Aunt Diana promised to pay for 6 different family renovations. None of them have been paid for. Diana's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass, leaving her champagne abandoned. The market has been volatile. My investments just need time to mature. What investments? I asked, turning my laptop screen toward her. I've traced every financial claim you've made in the past 5 years. There are no investments, are there? The expensive pendant lights we couldn't afford cast harsh shadows across Diana's face. You don't understand the pressure. After Henry died, everyone expected me to maintain a certain standard. So you maintained it with lies? Chris's voice cracked. By making promises you couldn't keep? By pushing us into debt we can't afford. I pulled up another spreadsheet, $350,000. That's the total amount of renovations you've promised to pay for across the family. Us, Emma's house, Chris's sister's kitchen, his brother's basement. All promised, none paid, Emma finished, still reading incoming texts. Mom says you told them all to spare no expense because you were funding everything. Diana stood up suddenly, smoothing her designer dress. I need to make some calls. My financial advisor doesn't exist. I interrupted. I checked. The office address you gave us is a vacant storefront. The sound of our new smart doorbell cut through the tension. Chris checked his phone and went pale. It's Martinez, the contractor. He's here to discuss the lien. Diana grabbed her purse. I should go. No, Chris said firmly. You're staying. You're going to explain to him exactly why you told us to order the most expensive materials when you had no intention of paying. The contractor, Mr. Martinez, entered our beautiful new kitchen with a grim expression. His eyes swept over the high-end finishes his team had installed, then settled on Diana. Mrs. Pierce, he said coldly. Interesting to finally meet you. After all the times your son told me you were handling the payments. Diana's composure cracked completely. I never meant. I was going to. Going to what? Martinez asked. Going to actually pay for the materials we already installed. The custom work you specifically requested. The crew that worked overtime because you insisted the job had to be finished before this party. I opened another folder on my laptop. Mr. Martinez, I have documentation of every time my mother-in-law claimed she was paying, every upgrade she insisted on, every promise she made. Would that be helpful for your legal case? Diana sank back onto the bar stool. You're my children. How can you do this to me? Do this to you? Chris exploded. You pushed us into hundreds of thousands in debt, made promises you knew you couldn't keep, used us to maintain your image as the wealthy widow who takes care of everyone. Emma's phone kept buzzing with family messages. Uncle Steve says you promised to pay for his whole house remodel next month. Aunt Sarah was counting on you for her pool installation. The web of Diana's financial fantasies was unraveling in real time, leaving a trail of debt and betrayal across the entire family. I just wanted everyone to have beautiful things, Diana whispered, to live the way we used to when your father was alive. By lying? I asked softly. By making promises that are destroying our financial future. Martinez cleared his throat. I need to know how we're going to resolve this. The lion paperwork is ready to file. 6 months after the housewarming disaster, we sat in our beautiful but haunted kitchen, surrounded by papers from our bankruptcy attorney. The high-end appliances Diana had insisted on gleamed mockingly as we worked out payment plans with each contractor. Martin has agreed to reduce the bill by 20%, Chris said, reviewing our latest negotiation results. If we stick to the monthly payments, he won't file the lien. The true cost of Diana's generosity had rippled through the entire family. Emma's renovation had to be halted halfway through, leaving her house partially gutted. Chris's sister had canceled her kitchen remodel just in time. But his brother hadn't been so lucky. He was also facing contractor liens. The family therapy sessions are helping, I noted, sorting through bills. At least we're all talking about it now. Diana had been diagnosed with what her therapist called financial narcissism, a compulsion to maintain her image through grandiose promises she couldn't keep. She'd been living on credit cards and small loans, creating an elaborate fantasy of wealth while drowning in debt herself. Mom's house is being sold, Chris said quietly. The realtor thinks it'll cover most of her debts, at least. The doorbell rang, our expensive smart doorbell that we couldn't return because it had been custom installed. It was Emma, carrying a stack of folders. I've been documenting everything, she said, spreading papers across our contentious granite island. Every renovation promise Mom made to family members over the past 5 years. The total is close to $2 million. Money that never existed, I added, but that everyone based their plans around. We'd started a family support group of sorts, helping each other deal with the financial and emotional aftermath of Diana's promises. Weekly meetings in our over-improved homes, sharing stories of how we'd all been manipulated into living beyond our means. The contractors have formed a creditors group, Emma reported. They're working together to recover their costs. Some of them nearly went bankrupt themselves waiting for Mom's non-existent payments. Diana now lived in a small apartment. Her designer furniture had been sold to pay debts. She attended mandatory financial counseling and was learning to live within her actual means for the first time since Henry died. She left me a voicemail yesterday, Chris said. First time she's talked about Dad's life insurance truth. Turns out it was only a fraction of what she claimed. She'd been maintaining the fiction of wealth for 15 years. The evening sun streamed through our custom windows, casting long shadows across the imported tile floors. Everything in our house carried the weight of Diana's lies. Beautiful things we couldn't afford, bought on promises that were never real. You know what's ironic? I said, looking around our kitchen. We could have done a beautiful renovation within our original budget, something we could actually afford and enjoy. Instead we have a showpiece we can barely pay for, Chris finished. Emma nodded. Mom's need to maintain appearances nearly destroyed all our financial futures. But at least we know the truth now. We'd worked out payment plans for everything, stretching our budget to the breaking point but avoiding bankruptcy. It would take years to pay off the renovation, but we'd do it honestly. No more false promises, no more fictional funding. Diana was learning too. Her therapist reported progress in accepting her actual financial situation, though she still struggled with the loss of her artificial status. The family's weekly meetings continued, not just for financial support but for emotional healing. The contractors installed these lights, Chris mused, looking up at our expensive fixtures. Real people did real work, believing Mom's promises. That's what gets me the most, how many people she hurt with her lies. I touched the smooth granite countertop, remembering Diana's enthusiastic insistence on the upgrade. We'll make it right, not with fake promises or imaginary money, but with honest work and real payments. As we sat in our over-improved kitchen, surrounded by the physical evidence of Diana's deception, we realized the true renovation needed wasn't in our homes, but in our family's relationship with truth and reality. Sometimes the most expensive things aren't the materials or fixtures, but the lies we tell ourselves and others about how we'll pay for them.